So I think it's about time. So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us today in this webinar, during which we're going to be discussing about traumatic events and about what to do with regard to them. Traumatic events of small and bigger magnitudes happen all the time. And they're always both undesirable and uncontrollable, meaning we cannot just plan for them. But there are always things that we can do about them, as Dr. Zvezdan Horvat, Business and Professional Director, Southeastern Europe, Baltics and Mediterranean of the Adizes Institute, is going to be explaining shortly. And this is going to be the first part of our webinar today. Now, we at the Adizes Institute worldwide believe that there are life cycles that are present everywhere, from individuals to organizations to societies as a whole. Even the universe itself has a life cycle. It was born at some point in time, and it constantly evolves thereafter. Sometime maybe die, I don't know. It has a life cycle itself, therefore. Now, we observe that organizational trauma has its own life cycle of evolution too. And we identified this pattern, and as a result, we administer a questionnaire to a number of organizations worldwide. Some interesting observations, therefore, are going to be presented myself immediately afterwards. During the third part of this webinar, both Dr. Zvezdan Horvat and myself will attempt to give an answer to the questions that we can pose anytime during this webinar. Without any further delay, I would like to pass the word to Dr. Zvezdan Horvat, and once again to thank you for joining us and hope that you enjoy. Zeki, the word is yours.
Thank you very much. So, when we talk about trauma, when we talk what we have passed by, I always have three pictures in my mind. The first picture is in fact connected to the black swan. You know, the Professor Taleb popularized that from 2001. So that is, you know, huge event which we don't know how happens, at the same time has the huge influences, and then we don't know how to get through with that. So in fact, that is somehow happened to us because it's something new for us, really. It was first invented for financial things, but then it was generalized for any type of crisis or any type of huge events. The second picture I have is in fact butterfly effects. You know, that means again that something happens somewhere far away, but somehow because we are all interrelated, it can get, it can have a huge influence on my business as well. So all these things happen to us. But if we want to go into how to solve that, then I have another picture, which is Gordian, the Gordian knot, you know, and as Alexander started, you know, to solve this problem with the sword, we cannot do that, in fact. If we want to untie our crisis, we need to try, you know, to pull out parts of this string, you know, and we cannot do it just in one big hit. What I'm trying to say, the answer to the crisis is not one. It's not just if you would do just one good thing, you know, everything would be fine. In reality, it means many, many more things. So let's talk about that. As George already mentioned, we believe in life cycle. So you have, you know, in Adizes, there is Adizes, classical Adizes life cycle. There is a growing phases, aging phases, company can die in the meantime. And when we talk about all these things, in reality, we are talking that the left side is more effective, which means that they understand the market better. At the same time, they are not very efficient. Right side of the life cycle or aging part, companies are more efficient, but less effective. So they do not probably understand the market, but at the same time, they have things, put things into the order. So we always believe in balance. So what's happening here is that you are in certain position, which can be good or bad, but now there is a black swan. Black swan will hit you, and based on that, you would have organizational trauma. So you cannot stay just in the same position like nothing happened. Or you can, but we are going to talk about that later on. So as a result of that, we can say that you can have trauma from any part of organizational life cycle. Simply, you are there and now something happens which we do not have any type of control, even influence at the moment. So what happened is that there is I would like now to explain the organizational trauma cycle. There is an event, traumatic event probably, and immediately after we are in shock. As a result of that, there are companies which can see the certain chances, and they would probably immediately react and try to find what's going on, try to find certain new effectiveness, new product, new services, new ways, and immediately they will go through awakening to amplification. What does it mean? That they found that they know what to do. Of course, they've been first in the shock, but later on, they put certain things into the place and they can go through the trauma to the, let's say, new normality. But then some companies would be, you know, simply in the problem that can be industry. That industry is so seriously hit that simply you cannot react, or simply you don't know what to do. But whatever is the reason, you can go from shock, you can go to collapse. And now some companies again will find a way and go to awakening, and some of them would not. As a result, they will go to coma. For instance, restaurants, everything is closed, they will go probably immediately to coma. But again, if they would start delivering, if they would start doing certain things, that can bring them to awakening, or they wait to reopen. If they have enough efficiency, enough cash or whatever, then probably they would not be dead immediately. But unfortunately, some companies will be dead based on doing nothing. So in fact, the difference from shock, collapse, and coma is just, you know, how differences are, in fact, how hard it is to get out. That is like, you know, when you have inertia, when you stop, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, you know, to get run again. So in this case, what happened to many of the companies are that they hopefully they went through with certain damages, of course. But the question here is how to get further. And the key is to get to awakening is to get certain new effectiveness. I would say that, or new process, or new product, or new service, or new way, or whatever. And then later on, in order to go to new reality in amplification, in fact, you need to put these things into the system. Let me explain certain things. What happens usually? Usually companies, they start firing people or cutting resources for marketing or R&D or trainings. The key denominator of this is new. They cut new things, and that is what we should avoid. In fact, yes, of course, that you cannot stay at the same level of investment, but still you need to have investment. Otherwise, later on, after the crisis, you would be in the very bad shape. So in reality, we need to be very wise, but not to stop these things, but to see how to make them, but on probably certain different way. As a result of that, you can see companies in the short-term crisis can be in certain phases. Some of them, as I said already, some of them will fight for survival. Some of them can see growth. So in this way, they will go through this crisis and trauma cycle in different ways. But then, immediately after, we cannot say that the new normal is the old normal. The new normal can be, in fact, recession. So it's going to be, it depends probably also from industry to industry, but you cannot say, you know, now everything is like it used to be, we can go further. So if we go into the first part, we see that the companies which should survive and try to find the ways how to survive, in fact, they should take care of clients, operations, suppliers, people, money, cash, whatever. As a result of that, if they would take care of that, then they would go through and which will lead us to recession. If they survive, the next point would be probably a redefinition of the organization, size, way how to operate, can be business model definition, redefinition, or I would say renting, which means that we have some spare waste assets we do not use. Many things are possible, but what we need to do is we need to learn, and you know, it's written here from sales to customer service. Of course, that you cannot start being very good with the clients right now. It was, you know, your past story. But in reality, what you need to do is you need to find a way how your clients will come back. So not to sell to the new clients, which is in fact customer service, not always to try to find somebody else. What I'm trying to tell you. So if you survive, you need to have your loyal group of people, and that is the way how you are going to go further. You need to change the model, you need to put things into the order. But if you found out certain growth opportunities during the crisis, like I have a client who built the biggest virus lab in Netherlands during this crisis, or another one who started, you know, producing virus tests. So for them, it was really growth. I'm not talking that there are many other things like some, you know, food distribution companies or retails in the food industry. They had, in some countries, they had a growth of at least 50%. But what point is that you must be fast. You need to build a new effectiveness. One bank increased the capacity for contact center for more than, I think it was triple. So new things, fast development, new effectiveness, and then certain organizational update based on that. So you need to find a way how to reorganize yourself, processes, structure, whatever, in order to use chances. These companies, after the crisis, they have, fortunately for them, of course, they have possibility to do in mergers and acquisitions, for instance, or they can go into new development if they don't want to buy somebody. But anyway, they need to systematize those changes. For instance, this company which I mentioned, which started to build, to do tests for COVID, now they need to reorganize to make structural reinforcement, which means that they need to define probably profit center for that. So otherwise, you know, simply it's not going to be sustainable business. Of course, that what happened, it's not just because they started immediately, you know, doing tests. It was based on what they have done before. But they just used, you know, the chance, and that was the opportunities there, and the problem all of us have, and in the result, they started doing that. So for them, it is completely different story. But what is the point here? If even you are in the mode of survival of the growth, later on, you need to redo your business model to see what's going on and to go further. And then to support that by organizational structure, that is what we believe, because otherwise nothing will be supported. It's not just idea, it must be system. Why I'm talking about the system? So we have a hit of Corona, and because of that, we have certain consequences. So there is a hit and we have a consequences. In between, that's our organization. Which type of consequences are there? So we can have some certain misbehaviors. We can have not enough change, which means not enough new products, not enough new approaches. We don't know what to do. Or we are very bureaucratized, or our processes are broken. Or at the end of the story, we do not produce result, there is no money, there is no sales. All these things can happen if there is such crisis. But which are our shields? What is our protection for that? Our protection for that is the system. And I will later explain that. There is a system in between, and there is everyday work in between. So from the cause to the end result, you have two things which are in fact protecting you for going bankrupt. First is system, and then it's everyday work. What is in the system? In the system, we have our organizational culture. Organizational culture is our value system, our climate, our styles of our key people. Organizational culture, in fact, means that, for instance, easily people will accept that because of the future, they need to have a reduction of the salaries. So your culture is culture of mutual trust and respect. People can understand that. It's not that they would fight on that. On the other hand, there is a structure. For us in Adizes, structure means organizational structure, then structure of authority and reward structure. So if, for instance, what I'm trying to say, if you have a box, you are a unit, it does not mean that you don't need to go to the CEO every day to ask for decisions. That means that authority and responsibility are not aligned. So if that is aligned, then probably the guys can make certain decisions, and then not everybody will come to you during the crisis to solve that. And plus we have managerial processes. That means that because of we planned, we know how to adjust the plans, we know how to change things, and that is okay for us, then we are strong. So this is the shield which will protect you of end bad results. And then we have everyday work. How do we deal with the client, with operations, with our people, with money? If we are good in that, that is another layer which will help us not to have really severe consequences. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you have these things in place, then all these consequences probably, I cannot say would not emerge, but at least the seriousness of all these things would not be so high. But that means that we have a shield. And the key point is that after this crisis, you should learn. Have you had before any of those shields? That is why you have been severely hit. Or you have something. And that's what I got from our client. He said, you know, because what we have done before, we went through this smoothly. And that's the point. Have you learned something out of this or not? And then if you would not do on prevention, that nobody can help you. Because again, you would wait to be hit. So that's the general problem. What we believe, and that is the famous quote of Peter Drucker, is that organizational culture eats strategy for breakfast. So that means that if you are not aligned inside with your people, then you are in real trouble. And that is really what's going on here. What is the driving force? Who is changing? If you would wait that COVID would be your driving force for your digital transformation, then you are in trouble. I don't know. It's possible that you are going to survive. But if you have been already in such things, then it's going to be much easier to survive and to go through all these points. What you need to understand, you need to redefine. When I say redefine the model, that is what in Adizes what we call mission, and in fact is to define where, do you know where to go? Do you know how to go there? Can you decide? And what does it mean in reality? It means, you know, for instance, to decide, do we need really marketing? Do we need to maximize the satisfaction of our distributors or maximize the satisfaction of our end customer? Many companies do not understand that. Whom do they want to satisfy? That's the question. Many serious questions. And when we say mission, it's not PR mission. We are going to be very nice and we value people, etc. No, to decide which clients, which products, which geography, which channels, what are we going to change? So here, that is our point. In order to understand that, there are certain analyses. I would just explain it very fast, that there are certain needs, and the needs probably changed. You need to understand which are the needs in the market, and you must, put together with your capabilities. If you try to overlap them, if there are needs and you have capabilities, that's your bread and butter part of the business. But there are many others. There are capabilities, but we cannot develop the needs, or we do not develop the needs, should we? Or there are needs, but we do not have capabilities. Should we develop our capabilities? So we believe that you need to redefine yourself, on continuous basis. It's not just because of the corona. Corona is just big change, and change is always. Even you can have huge corona in your industry, and then you not connected to anybody else, but in your industry segment, it can be. So that is what you need to do all the time. And as a result of that, you will find that there are certain opportunities and threats. In Adizes, we call that oppor threats. That's a combination, and you know the story about Chinese, that they have the same characters for chance and for problem. And if you put it together, that is opportunity and threats. And as we know, if there is opportunity and we do not try to use it, then it becomes problem, or vice versa. If there is a problem and we started to use and to do something about that, it can become opportunity. So in fact, based on any analysis, you have opportunities and threats. And what is new business model? What is new mission? What are you going to do with opportunities and the threats? Always action. That is the mission. Mission is not we are very nice. Mission here is, that is why I'm using on purpose, I'm using new business model or whatever, because I like to emphasize there is a need for change. And then you must put that into the filter of values, because if you say, in your previous, and you put that on the wall, we take care of our client, or we take care of our people, and then when the crisis is there, everybody's, we fired almost everybody. Sorry, you must walk your talk. And for every value, there is a price. If you believe that you really take care of people, then you cannot fire immediately everybody. Or if you say the quality is very important for us, then you cannot, undermine that. Every quality, every value has a price. So there is no value without price. You must sacrifice something. We know the story about Boeing. They talked about integrity, quality. But when it was to be chosen between, more investment into trainings and, and put in certification, when they started the new engine put on Boeing 737-8 MAX, instead of, putting and spending certain money, they sacrificed quality immediately. Result, more than 400 people died. A result, more than 1.5 years or around that, all the planes of the type are grounded. Many things lost. But that is walk your talk. Not to talk about diesel engines in Volkswagen and other things. So there is a price. If you really believe in that, you should follow. And that would be probably your strongest competitive advantage if you can understand that. As a result, and just let's close the story, what we need to do, we are going to always, in any case, something should be new, something should be modified, something should be eliminated, and something should be kept. So simply, that's true for every situation. Here, even more important, that you need to understand, you cannot stay, and do, that's the definition of madness, do the same things and expect that something else will happen. So that's what cannot happen. So you need to go out of that, and point is that you need to learn. If you have not learned anything from this crisis, then you are in real trouble. And then to apply that. Hopefully, not hopefully, I can guarantee that if you would have a next crisis, and next crisis will happen, you will go through easily. So altogether, it's not the business for one genius, which is CEO. It's the business of teams, of course, at different levels. So if the culture is there, if people can decide on certain things, etc., then you will get through this crisis easier, or even you would not be hurt in any way. So altogether, we need fresh restart. Fresh restart, you know, now you survive. So, or we believe that we survive. Now let's go see what is new reality, what is new effectiveness, what is new investment, what is, when I say investment, does not mean immediately huge amount of money. It can be just train people in online teams, I don't know, something like that. But always new. If you do not have anything new, you cannot expect that some new and good things can happen. And let me just close with what famous Louis Pasteur said: fortune favors the prepared mind. Simply, you know, you must go and do certain things. And if you have learned something, then, you know, success is smiling. If you have not, then you probably survive today, but next time, who knows? The best companies, they solve the problems the best. And that is the key. They are the best because of that. Not because they are lucky, not because they have connections. The best companies are best because they know how to solve the problems. If you cannot learn from problem solving, you know, from your process, then we are in trouble. I hope that, you know, I hope that all the companies here are the companies who can learn. And that is for us very important, to have clients who can learn. Thank you very much. George,
Thank you, Zeki. Thank you very much for the nice presentation. We are now moving forward to the results of the questionnaires, and I will try to share my screen right away. So here we are. So, what the whole thing was about. As I said, we administered a questionnaire in quite a few companies around the globe, which actually was designed in order to locate the stage that the organization is in, the organizational trauma cycle. The questionnaire was approved by the Professional Council of the Adizes Institute worldwide, and therefore it was a very valid tool. Measuring individual, but not collective perceptions. Actually, it was measuring the perception of the person that answered the questionnaire, which has some limitations per se, but in any case, it gives a good picture of how things evolve. As a result, it has a descriptive value, but some inferences are possible, and definitely it was not a survey. It was not a scientific approach, but still the inferences are quite interesting. So what we saw about Greece, I will explain a little bit the figure that you see on the left-hand side. So the numbers you see are the popularity of each stage, let's say. You see 9 in shock, it means that the person that answered the questionnaire favored this particular phase in the trauma cycle, 9%. So the figures do not add to 100%, but still each one of them is, let's say, is representative of a particular life cycle stage. Now on the right-hand side, you can see the most popular questions per stage. We're not going to be staying at that. We can actually discuss as long as you like, but still the biggest picture is the most important. So some inferences can show a clear tendency towards the right side of the curve, which is good. We can see that the participants, the persons that answered the questionnaire actually believed that they had already done quite a few things, or they were lucky enough not to be at the left-hand side of the curve. Therefore, optimism prevails, albeit at different degrees. This is an average of what has been the result of the questionnaire. Clearly, we saw that there were companies that had the left-hand side equally strong or even more stronger than the right-hand side, but the average response was what you saw at the figure. There is, however, an assumed C-level bias, meaning that C-level executives tend to think more optimistically. If we just administer the questionnaire to lower levels in the organization, probably would see a different picture altogether, a very different picture. Then we can see a readiness for taking short-term action and to fight present challenges, which I think is a part of the culture itself. But then longer-term perspective was relatively at shortfall. I mean, it was clear that people that answered the questionnaire thought that it would be nice to deal with a problem now and then forget about the future to a certain extent. There was not a single questionnaire that we saw that amplification was higher than the previous stage. And there were three main kinds of responses from people that I spoke with. It does not come out of the questionnaire per se, but it just came out of discussions that things fly, but the organization is weak. This was one type of response. We die in an optimistic way, meaning that we are, we have been managing the thing, but we do not know what is going to be the future now. So we just wait and see. And then the third one was we're just overwhelmed. We just do not see any future. We just was closing business down. We do not see what we can do in order to survive in the short term. So these were the main kinds of responses. Moving on to Southeast Europe, we can see more or less the same picture. And there we can see some cultural proximity. I mean, Southeastern European countries have gone through crises. They have been quite a few times in survival mode. So it would be expected that they would answer in the same way. The pattern would be the same. However, more weight was put on the left side of the curve than what happened in Greece. And there was some unwillingness to take responsibility from people as the perception of their manager was. I mean, the persons that responded to the questionnaire, who were C-level executives, all of them, just saw that they were not followed. Their optimism was not followed. However, there was a more collective approach to managing both future and present challenges, which is a cultural difference from Southern European countries and Greece. In Greece, I think we tend to be more individualistic, a more individualistic culture. We tend to be lone wolves, sort of. We tend to try and do things alone, more or less. And there was quite a thing that was observable, the importance of humor. I mean, when humor returns to the picture, things start to look better and to feel better. Now moving on to the Western and Northern Europe, the picture is what do you see? Whereby in America too, the pattern is the same. So I chose to show those two together. There is a clear cultural distance from Greece and Southeast Europe, which is quite visible. Optimism is again visible, but less weight was placed on the right-hand side of the curve. The left-hand side was stronger. Still, Northern European countries and American countries believe that things are hard. They cannot overcome the problem. And then there was more importance on rebalancing the organization, not to produce something new, but balance again. That was the main thing that came out from this questionnaire. And then moving on to Asia, clearly, here we can see the same pattern again, but again, even more importance to the left-hand side of the curve, and more importance to the right one, where again there is cultural difference that is visible here. Here it was quite uniquely mentioned that miracles can happen, which again I think is something like something that has to do with culture as well. And even, of course, less weight was put on the left-hand side of the curve, probably as a result. And then we tried to compare the results. Clearly, that was quite impressive. That was also, you know, to me, it was striking. Greece had scored the highest score in awakening. That was impressive from every other country, from every other region. And the lowest score on the left-hand side of the curve. And then again on amplification, which it means that we have a stronger organization. Now let's capitalize on that. Let's try to build market share. Let's go and fight for market share. Let's go and grow. Seem to be much higher than other countries. So some generic inference here. There's the same pattern, possibly due to sea-level bias. Of course, different questionnaires produce different results, but the total picture was that, okay, we had a problem. The problem was quite a global problem, but still we can live. We can go ahead with that, and we can survive in the new reality. But again, we are sea-level executives. This is our job. There were different levels of balancing of the left and the right-hand side of the curve, as I said, which was visible both in country and in region. And of course, there were differences between regions as well. Different cultures seem to be emerging differently. I mean, let's say Eastern cultures tend to believe more in, let's say, sort of miracles or whatever, or the presence of higher power. Western countries did not seem to believe that they had a more rational sort of approach. It was throughout. It was observable that gains from awakening did not capitalize in the future. I mean, what we did and the fact that we are successful in doing that is for now. We'll try to do the same things as we did yesterday. We're going to be doing the same things tomorrow, and we are going to be successful. So it seems that what Zeki said, meaning that we have to learn from this and build a stronger organization by investing in structure, culture, new mission, new systems, new things. It was not clearly observable. There were some companies that I saw that they had amplification higher than awakening, but still at very low levels. Still, the organizations were perceived as being weak. And there was a clear understanding that new normality, new reality, new normality, the new normal, as we say, is actually the current reality. Not throughout, but there were many executives that now know that the new reality is not going to be the same than yesterday. It's going to be a different one. It's going to be what we're going through right now. So we have to be prepared for this. We have to build stronger organizations. We have to deal with that. And I think with that, I'm passing the word to you, Zeki.
Yeah, we got a few questions. So let's try to answer. There is also let me check. There is also somebody wants to ask. Okay, there is a participant. I will let you, please, Mr. Ioannis Bakopoulos. So there is a. You please. He asked for a word, so probably to pass the question.
Yanni, you can speak if you want to. Just unmute yourself and you can start your video in order to do so.
Okay, if not, I don't know, whatever is the reason for that. There are a few questions still written. One is, what happened to your clients during the pandemic? You know, it's very interesting. You know, the area we cover is from Baltic countries, then let's say Poland, that's a central part of Europe, to Slovenia, to Greece, Israel. But in general, I would say that we believe, and not just we believe, our clients went through the pandemic very good. Because really what is important is working on the culture, and I think that they had a chance to mobilize their people to start doing some new solutions. At the same time, that is what we teach them, you know, that they have a possibility to work together, and the tools how to do that, tools how to change the things. That's the point here. As a result of that, I would say that many of our clients are really, really in good shape. Of course, there are somebody is hit more or less, but if you put together, you know, we started working again completely face to face. Many companies are continued immediately working online. So many factors. They said, you know, for instance, it was the question with one of our clients when we did a mission, should we talk about half a year or a year? No, they said, no. You know, we went through. We want to go and talk about 3 years. So, you know, that is my perception. George?
Well, I think what we do actually is that we try to, using tools, as you said, and things we use in the Adizes, to try to influence the culture so that the culture finally become a winning culture. It's very important that entrepreneurship is building the organization not at the top only, but at all levels, so that the new future is seen by everybody, and everybody actually acts towards this. It's not only important to produce an organization that the CEO is optimistic. Everybody has to be optimistic. Everybody has to let's say, to live the dream. And this is a cultural thing. Otherwise, you know, systems, processes, whatever, cannot make an impact. So what we see is that organizations that we work for actually have this culture, and they could more, let's say, fit to managing the situation, no matter how difficult it was. Zeki.
Yeah, you know, I always, I don't know, it's interesting that, you know, it seems to me that, you know, simply you must work on that, you know, that is the famous question, why are the toilets in Germany clean? You know, and the answer is very simple, because they clean them. So that's the point. You know, if you want really to do something, you must work on that. It cannot happen, you know, it cannot hit you by chance. No way. There are more questions. Let me just check them. Are mistakes allowed? And we can make a wrong. Also, if a wrong decision was made, a mistake, can that be rectified? Are mistakes allowed? So, tell me who has that capability not to make mistakes, you know? So But you know, it's not the point. Point is that how fast are you going to change that? Again, everybody can make mistakes. The point is that you need to make the change again, if that is wrong. But if you would stop allowing people making changes or stop making mistakes, you will in fact make bureaucratic organization which will die by definition. So that's here. George?
Yeah, I would say exactly the same thing. It's not that important not to make a mistake. The most important thing is to act, to decide fast and to act, and then to learn from the mistakes that you possibly do, because others are going to be deciding and acting. So staying still, not doing anything, just because you may make a mistake, would be more or less the recipe for death. Or for serious illness. So no matter how tough the situation is, no matter how critical the decision is, decisions have to be made and action has to be taken. And then we learn from this. Zeki.
Now there is a question which was probably written in Greek alphabet, which is now translated to Latin, which is now interesting to be read. Why it is essential to see crisis? Okay, I understand. That is what I was talking. So why is essential to be seen as an opportunity, not as a threat? Okay, it's very interesting how it's written. I would say that, you know, there is a research done by, I mean, many years ago by psychologists who said they try to find who can better predict the situation, optimist or pessimist, you know, and then they said that, of course, the pessimists, they are the people who know. So if they say something is bad, no doubt on that. On the other hand, as a result of research, they found out that the optimists are in fact more successful. Because they said, so what? Yes, situation is bad, but if we are going to cry, nothing can happen. So I would say that this is the point, because if we do not have optimism and we do not run our companies, who else can do that? So our business, we are paid, all of us who are in managerial positions are in fact paid to do something, to find a way. We are not there to, you know, just to cry. And it's very important for me to understand the difference. You know, sometimes in theory, you can find there is a management and there is a change management. Of course, there are certain models or certain tools for change, but management and change management, that's the same. You cannot be CEO who is not changing. What? If your business is to be stable, to have status quo? No, your business is to change, and this is the time for change. If you cannot find a way, then of course that your company will, I don't know, hopefully not die, but I would not say they would be in a good shape. George?
Well, I tend to say that there are people that see opportunities in any problem, and are people that see problem in every opportunity. It depends on the way or the point of view. Do we need both? Yes, we do. We do need both. We need every single aspect of the same thing. So it's important to see the problematic issues in the opportunity and the opportunities in any issues that have to do with the problem. Nevertheless, we have to move ahead. We have to deal with the situation, as you said, Zeki. Being a CEO means that you have to change because things around are changing. You cannot just stand still. And then change means problems. And the problems you have to administer, bringing more change. It doesn't stop anything. It doesn't anyway. You have to move ahead. So no matter, problems are going to happen. Problems are life, however. You're alive when you have problems. Problems you can handle, problems you can manage, problems you can administer in order to go forward. Zeki.
there is a question. Assuming that a firm has plenty of reserves to weather the storm in activity that does not allow much change as per its business model, do you think it's absolutely essential to seek radical changes in the model or operational aspects? Or is there also the option to wait patiently for the storm to calm down and blue skies again? I would tell you, you should not change just because of the change. You should change if the needs are changing. We do not say that you need to change just because of the change. You don't know what to do and then you would change. My perception here, and thank you for this question, is simply it depends. But what is the problem? That everything is changing and you do not change, and then you are in fact surprised. You know, if you do certain things consciously, I don't have any problem. But if you do some things unconsciously and later on it will chase you, then we are in trouble. So simply, if your analysis and your thinking and your people together say, you know, I don't know, we are good restaurant, we are good hotel, we do not, you know, we have a good presence on internet, I don't know what else, but there are no tourists. So probably you need to survive. But do you need a radical change? I don't know. It depends. If you have done everything already and many things are there, then probably not. But on the other hand, it really depends on common sense. You know, here I would say that the key factor is that there are no prescribed medicines. There are certain principles which you should use selectively for your case. You know, the problem of the management books, and that's what we try to avoid, is that everybody talks about Google, Apple, I don't know what else, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and choose, Facebook. And then you come home and you say, but am I like Coca-Cola, or, you know, $3 billion there and $5 billion there? Of course not. So what we believe is that, you know, at the end of the story, common sense by using certain principles is the essential. We do not change because of the change, but we believe that majority of the businesses should change, but it does not necessarily yours. George.
Well, there's nothing bad with deciding not to change, as long as this is a conscious decision. I mean, you have to take the risks under consideration for not changing. You have to, let's say, examine all the possible, let's say, risks and opportunities to stand still and to wait for the storm. But you have to take seriously under consideration that others change. Others consider new processes, new clients, new ways, whatever. So as long as this is a conscious decision that has taken under consideration all those factors, then that could be a decision. That would be a plausible decision.
There is one more. There are two more questions. One is, how is it possible to help a CEO not to feel in coma? He feels he's not able to do anything in crisis. So I would not try, first of all, I would not try to blame him, but the question is, right now, the only way is try to go, it's not improvisation. Now, I believe that he or she should go through, you know, systematic process, that to find out what's going on and to see what can be done. You know, of course, that certain positive thinking should be there. But again, if he cannot see, then he must include his people. You know, if people, that's the problem, you know, the best managers, they hire the best people. The second level managers, they hire third level people. And the third level people, they hire losers. You know, so if you do not have anything to talk to, then that's probably your problem. I believe that if you would include, and that is, I would tell you, for us, this is Southeast Europe, we have 20 people, and we have done more, we call it senior teams, we have done more senior teams on than ever before during the pandemic. How the needs changed, what's going on, which are the channels, what is about online, many different stuff. And also this questionnaire, which was developed that time, and many other things. Why? Because that is the only way. And believe me, let's say, I'm the CEO of that. And I would say that it was not everything was my decision and my idea and etc. But I think that we have good people. So that's my, if you cannot do alone, then you need to enlarge the group. If the group is not capable, then we are in trouble. But then, hopefully, if you would somehow survive, I hope that you would think about that in the future. And next time, you would have better group to talk. If you do not respect your people, you are in trouble. And probably you've been in the position to hire them. So it means that you've been in the position to hire people you do not trust. If so, then, I don't know, then we are in trouble. George?
You see, the CEO role is a lonely role. How lonely it is, it's in the hands of the CEO to decide. I mean, as you said, if you have trustworthy people that work with you, that share the same dream, work for the same mission, the same vision, they will help. And things will happen. They will take care of you. And then a CEO has to decide that he or she is not alone. He or she may have friends, may have, vendors, suppliers, customers that he or she can talk to and share. But the most important thing has to do with own people, the organization of people. I mean, the people that live and work with you. You have to include them. And they can do things, they can do amazing things. Zeki.
Yeah, there is a question. Can we get copies of slides as a reminder of what you have taught? I would say yes, and you would get a link for that, because tomorrow you will get official thank you from Zoom and from us. So we would try to make that happen there. And there is last question was, what is the factor for using our time for creativity? It's interesting that it's paradox, because if you don't know anything else, then you need to be creative. I mean, exactly like CEO who was mentioned. So the time is, I think that I have worked more time than any time before during the pandemic. Office, home, meetings all the time. But in fact, willingness to survive, positive, willingness to survive, responsibility for our people and such things. That is what, in fact, led us into those activities to find out how to survive. You have people, you are responsible for them in certain way. Of course, you are not going to give them bread, but they need to earn for bread. But still, you from the top, you are somehow responsible for that. Fish stinks from head, so that's what we can do. George?
Well, if there is a critical role that the CEO has to take care of, is the role of entrepreneurship. I mean, you could not expect people that work on the floor to come up with new ideas. I mean, okay, they can be entrepreneurial as well, but their role is to wake up, come to work, do their work in the best possible way, go home. The role of the CEO, the real role, is to be entrepreneurial. The role of the CEO is to produce the new, to produce the vision of the organization, the mission of the organization, the strategy, how to get there. So he or she needs to find a way to do that. okay, this is not an easy thing because the CEO has to do a lot of work himself or herself, day-to-day administrative work. But again, there's no way that you can manage an organization and take the organization from here to there in the future without being entrepreneurial. So time has to be found, new opportunities have to be pinpointed, and new things have to happen.
Okay, there is the last one, the last question. In your comparative studies, do you observe a difference in ability to handle change amongst organizations handling it on their own versus those where governments were assisting organizations manage the change during the COVID pandemic? I would say no. We have not done that because, you know, it was, I would say that we have not had a chance, you know, to really to go into all the details and to get such answers and to compare really every country, because many countries, they have different measurements for supporting or not supporting, etc. What I can say what we found out, it's a clear correlation between perception and number of virus cases, infected cases in the countries and the results of questionnaire. So I would say that if you compare Greece, who was very good in, you know, solving the problems of pandemia, their perception of going out is the highest. Then it is Southeast Europe, then it is Western Europe, and let's say America, more or less the same. And then Asia, with Asia, it is the questionable because we have a problem with, I would say, with all others is okay, but here the sample is questionable because it covers huge area. And it's not clear, you know, it's not really homogeneous sample in this case. But what you can see, if you compare, this was done 2 months ago, and if you compare the level of sickness in the country with the results, you can see the clear relationship here. George, anything?
Well, I think at a crisis of this magnitude, you cannot imagine how can things can go forward without a big picture in place. Definitely, governments have to step in and do something. Otherwise, the problem gets bigger and bigger. However, this is an uncontrollable factor. I mean, what government is going to be doing for this is not something that you can even influence. So one has to stand on his or her feet. The organization has to be strong. Of course, this is a thing of the past, but going forward, we have to build strong organizations that can sort of sustain the heat. Of course, during this pandemic, we had some strong organizations that just couldn't do that on their own. They had to be subsidized by the government. But then this is, again, something that is not directly controlled by the organization. So our task is to try to build strong organizations that have all the capability to walk ahead and go to the future. And if help comes, it comes. So, Zeki,
I think that we do not have questions. So please, you would receive tomorrow an email of thank you for participating, and if you would have any additional question, we would be happy to answer.
Can we bring Yanis online? I think there was a request that we were not able to satisfy before. Yanis Bakopoulos.
Okay, I can try.
But Yanni, you have to.
He is again allowed to talk, so if he can join us, it would be nice.
Okay.
Unfortunately.